In the heart of Islamic history, filled with dramatic events, various religious sects and groups emerged, leaving their mark through distinctive ideas and practices. Among these, the Akakza Sect, also known as the Yusufis, stands out. It appeared in the Maghreb during the 16th century and was notable for blending Sufism with unconventional beliefs, making it one of the most controversial religious movements in Islamic history. In this video, we will take you on a journey to explore the history of the Akakza Sect. We will delve into their most prominent beliefs, reveal the strange and unusual rituals for which they were famous, and examine how scholars and rulers confronted them, ultimately leading to the disappearance of their traces. Stay with us until the end to uncover these fascinating stories. Don't forget to support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel so you can receive all our latest content. The Akakza sect emerged within a historical context marked by significant intellectual and religious upheavals in the Maghreb, a region teeming with various Sufi orders and competing schools of thought. Within this environment, Sheikh Ahmad ibn Abdullah al-Manzuli rose as a highly controversial figure. He combined the Ibadi background that influenced him in his youth with the Sufi spirituality that later captured his attention. It is said that al-Manzuli exploited the spiritual mystery surrounding Sufism to give a sacred aura to his novel ideas. Historical accounts indicate that al-Manzuli possessed strong rhetorical skills, allowing him to attract a substantial following. Over time, he began to develop ideas that exceeded the boundaries of conventional religious thought. He claimed to receive divine revelation and asserted that he could provide a new and distinctive interpretation of religion, going beyond the teachings found in the Quran and Sunnah. These bold claims became the foundation upon which the Akakza sect was built. Central to the sect's teachings was a book attributed to Ibn Rubash, which al-Manzuli either claimed as his own or as a divinely inspired revelation. This text was considered by the sect as an alternative to the Quran, containing cryptic passages filled with symbols and esoteric interpretations. Al-Manzuli asserted that the book contained divine secrets, comprehensible only to his chosen followers. This claim served as an effective tool for consolidating control over his adherents and reinforcing the extraordinary nature of his sect. Unsurprisingly, scholars denounced the text, labeling it heretical and outside the bounds of Islam. As the sect expanded, the staff, or akas, carried by its followers became a symbol distinguishing the Akakza from other Sufi orders. Its use also reflected a form of protest against traditional religious practices. Al-Manzuli and his followers presented themselves as an exceptional group possessing ultimate spiritual truth. However, over time, this symbol gradually became associated with ridicule, as the sect gained a reputation for strange and morally questionable practices. Initially, the staff symbolized asceticism, but it soon became linked to the sect's practices, which were often described as extreme or deviant. Followers carried these staffs during public gatherings and seasonal celebrations, making the symbol inseparable from their controversial rituals. The Akakza sect emerged at a time when Sufism represented a major part of the religious landscape in the Maghreb. Al-Manzuli took advantage of this environment to promote his ideas, focusing particularly on the poor and marginalized communities seeking spiritual solutions to their social and economic difficulties. He presented himself as a spiritual guide, capable of granting them the secrets of salvation, which increased his following significantly. The choice of the sect's name was also strategically important in shaping its identity. Al-Manzuli emphasized the staff, akaz, as a physical symbol representing the sect's philosophy and spirit. This emblem fostered a sense of belonging among members, but also made it easier for authorities and the general public to identify them, eventually facilitating their persecution and suppression. While some historians describe this transformation as an attempt to present an alternative model of Sufism, others argue that al-Manzuli exploited the staff's symbolism and his spiritual claims to control followers, and justify the sect's deviations from Islamic teachings. Thus, the staff remained a symbol laden with contradictory meanings, representing both asceticism and deviation. The Akakza Sect spread across multiple regions of the Maghreb, with their presence particularly concentrated in the eastern areas. Among these, the Zakara and Banu Mohsen tribes emerged as major strongholds of the sect. In addition, their influence extended to other regions such as the Gananma and Tamsalu, indicating a wide reach and a strong impact on various tribal communities. French explorer Auguste Mouliera, in the early 20th century, estimated the number of the sect's followers to be around 50,000. This substantial figure reflects their considerable social and religious influence during that period. Their presence was not limited to small, isolated communities. Instead, it extended across numerous settlements, forming a tangible challenge to the established social and religious order in the Maghreb. The widespread influence of the Akakza sect, combined with their unconventional practices and distinct identity, alarmed both scholars and authorities. This prompted a strict and coordinated response from religious scholars and governing powers, who viewed the sect as a threat that needed to be contained. Efforts included monitoring their activities, challenging their teachings, and sometimes taking direct measures to suppress their gatherings. Despite these pressures, the Akakza's presence in key regions allowed them to maintain a significant following for decades. Their ability to attract and retain adherents across multiple tribal territories highlights the appeal of their spiritual message and the organizational strength of the sect, which made it a unique and influential movement within the religious landscape of the Maghreb during that era. The Akakza sect was among the most controversial religious groups in the Maghreb due to its beliefs and rituals, which were widely considered blatant deviations from Islamic law. The sect became infamous for a set of unusual doctrines and practices that shocked scholars and mainstream Islamic communities. Its ideas and ceremonies often exceeded the bounds of both religion and ethics, provoking widespread criticism. One of the most contentious beliefs within the Akakza was their denial of prophethood and the finality of Muhammad's message. Their leader, Ahmad ibn Abdallah al-Manzili, claimed that the prophecy of Muhammad was intended only for the general public, while followers who possessed what he called deep spiritual knowledge held the absolute truth. This belief led members to consider themselves exempt from following standard Islamic laws. Al-Manzuli went further, claiming to be a new prophet, attaining a higher spiritual rank than previous prophets, and asserting his ability to guide followers to levels of spiritual enlightenment unreachable by others. Such claims enraged religious scholars, who denounced them as clear deviations from Islam. The sect also replaced the Quran with a book called Ibn Riyash, which became their primary reference. This text contained teachings and concepts that contradicted Islamic law, advocating liberation from traditional religious constraints and introducing novel rituals claiming to attain God through unconventional methods. The book was frequently used to justify many of the sect's unusual and controversial practices, which sparked both societal and scholarly outrage. Rituals within the sect further evolved to include excessive veneration of its leaders. Ahmad ibn Abdallah al-Manzili was regarded as a sacred figure capable of mediating between his followers and God, and the sect elevated his status above that of Prophet Muhammad, according to their claims. His obedience was deemed more obligatory than adherence to Islamic law. Followers recited prayers and invocations that inserted the names of sect leaders alongside God's name, a practice scholars condemned as idolatry and shirk. The Akakza also taught that adherence to the 5 pillars of Islam, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, and pilgrimage, was intended only for the general public. Followers of the sect were considered exempt. Pilgrimage to Mecca was replaced with visits to the tomb of Sheikh Ahmad ibn Yusuf. Fasting was substituted with group spiritual sessions, and traditional prayer was seen as a constraint that prevented the soul from reaching absolute truth. Instead of congregational prayers, the sect conducted collective dhikr sessions interspersed with music and violent Sufi-style dances, designed to induce a state of spiritual ecstasy. The names of sect leaders were frequently invoked, while prophets and Quranic verses were largely ignored. The sect also permitted the consumption of prohibited foods, including pork and carrion, under the pretext that these acts demonstrated liberation from religious constraints and facilitated spiritual annihilation, drawing widespread criticism as a clear departure from Islamic teachings. The Akkakza's practices were not limited to adults. Children were introduced to rituals from an early age, trained in blind obedience to the sect's leaders, and prepared to participate in communal ceremonies, ensuring the perpetuation of the sect's teachings across generations. Through these beliefs and rituals, the Akkakza established themselves as a distinct and highly controversial group, blending elements of mysticism, extreme leader worship, and defiance of conventional religious norms, which ultimately drew the attention and condemnation of the broader Islamic scholarly community. The Akkakza sect had long been a source of significant concern for Muslim scholars and jurists due to its doctrinal deviations and unusual rituals, which were seen as a direct threat to the foundations of Islamic law. The response of scholars was firm and uncompromising. They labeled the sect heretical and called for active measures to confront it in order to protect the purity of religion and the stability of society. Among the most prominent scholars opposing the Akkakza was Al-Hasan al-Yusi, who described them in his writings as a misguided and criminal group. He emphasized that their ideas and rituals went beyond mere innovation, crossing into heresy that endangered Islamic belief. Al-Yusi explicitly urged the authorities to take decisive action to combat the sect and eradicate its influence, warning that leniency would result in widespread moral decay and corruption within society. Similarly, Muhammad al-Hashuki criticized the sect in his works, stating that the Akkakza did not merely engage in minor religious innovations, but had reached outright polytheism. He described their rituals as an affront to Islam and its legal system, advocating for their classification as apostates, who should either repent or face strict punitive measures. Al-Hashuki argued that the sect's teachings posed a serious threat to the religious identity of the broader Islamic community. The opposition to the Akkakza was not limited to scholars. Political authorities also recognized the danger posed by the sect and its disruptive impact on social stability. Sultan Moulay Ismail emerged as one of the most decisive rulers to confront them. In the late 17th century, as the sect's influence expanded and attracted a large following, Sultan Moulay Ismail decided to launch a military campaign against the Akkakza. In 1691, an organized military operation targeted the sect's main strongholds, aiming to dismantle their centers of power and disrupt their organizational structure. Many of the sect's leaders and elders were killed, and a large number of followers were arrested. This campaign dealt a significant blow to the Akkakza, greatly reducing their capacity to exert influence. However, the sect continued to operate in a limited and secretive manner in certain areas, prompting authorities to maintain continuous surveillance and respond to any attempts to reorganize the group. Through this combination of scholarly condemnation and state intervention, the Akkakza were largely contained, though their clandestine presence persisted, illustrating both the sect's resilience and the enduring challenges faced by religious authorities in preserving doctrinal orthodoxy and social order in the Maghreb. Under increasing pressure from scholars and authorities, the Akkakza sect gradually began to decline. These pressures included military campaigns led by Sultan Moulay Ismail, who viewed the sect as a clear threat to both religious and social stability in Morocco. Simultaneously, Islamic scholars continuously denounced the sect, exposing its doctrinal deviations and intellectual and practical aberrations to the general public. Despite these pressures, the sect attempted to maintain its presence through clandestine activities. They retreated to remote areas, trying to continue spreading their ideas in a limited way among the most marginalized segments of society. However, these efforts had only minimal impact. The sect lost the ability to attract new followers with the same vigor it had during its peak. Internal divisions among its leadership over how to respond to changing circumstances further weakened the group significantly. By the 20th century, the Akkakza had almost entirely disappeared. Its secret networks disintegrated, connections with former followers were severed, and its story became a historical memory, a cautionary tale about the dangers of extremism and deviation from the correct teachings of Islam. The sect is remembered in historical records as an example of how groups built on doctrinal deviation and intellectual excess eventually collapse. The Akkakza's rise and fall serve as a reminder of the enduring challenges faced by religious communities, balancing spiritual innovation with orthodoxy, and the consequences that can result when teachings stray far from established religious norms. While their presence faded, their story continues to offer lessons about faith, authority, and the societal impacts of religious extremism. In conclusion, the Akkakza sect is a clear example of a group that deviated from true Islamic teachings. Their unusual beliefs and rituals posed a serious threat to religion and societal morals. Their story highlights the importance of following authentic Islamic guidance and avoiding influences that can disrupt communities from within. The rise and fall of the sect also show the role of scholars and authorities in preserving religious and social stability. That's the end of today's video. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with our latest content.